Hey everybody, happy holidays. Another episode of Press for Time. We're towards the end of the year, and I had pulled out a bucket list for the year of things that I'd like to do. And a lot of it happens to do with talking with certain people and getting that chance to talk about things that I love. And that's what 2024 has been great for me with Press for Time. So today we're gonna start ending the year the right way by bringing in an awesome director for a movie that I actually discovered a couple months ago, but then discovered that he was making a remake, re-envision, sequel to a movie that a lot of people don't realize. For me, I always talk about Child's Play 2 being my first childhood horror movie at 8. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. This movie was, which was, I was looking at the math, I was about 5 years old, and I snuck watched this movie, and this movie was called Street Trash. So this is a crazy 1987 like physical body horror that dealt with like just the craziest color pastel of gore that you've ever seen in a movie to this day, until we've gotten the one and only director Ryan Kruger to come in and make a re-envision, and we're here to talk about that. So Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Cool, man. Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's a real honor, and for friends of the show and fans of the show, know Street Trash has a very very special place in my heart growing up. And what better way to kind of go out with a horror movie than something that you think about a movie like that, for those that are familiar with it, and say, does it need a remake? Does it need to be revitalized? And most people would say no, but then you think about it, and it's like, what could you do different? And I think you tackled that in a way that I would have never expected. So watching the trailer, initially I'm just, all right, it doesn't look like what I remember, but
Yeah.
there seems to be a lot more going on, which I think the original lacked.
Yeah.
For without being critical to it, there wasn't much to the movie. It was
Yeah.
about the Viper and the effects that it took on the homeless
No,
people.
exactly. I
you
think that
know,
just like you, I was a fan of Street Trash. I also grew up with it. So straight away for me, it's like what you just said then. It's literally, how I thought, what I thought. And when I was approached to do the film, I didn't randomly write the film that I was going to pitch for or anything like that. I was approached by producers to do this film. And straight away I was like, I knew what the original was. So straight away I was like, oh, this is going to be fucking cool. But also straight away, as being growing up in the 80s and early 90s as a kid, straight away I was like, because normally when you hear if they're doing like a remake or something like that, you're like, oh, why the fuck are they remaking this? So I just wanted to do something different. I gave plenty of nods to the original film. I wanted to make it a loose sequel. There's a lot of people in the scene now that have never watched the original Street Trash. So for a new audience, it can be a total standalone film. I think as a fan of the original, I think it did lack story, and it was the people that really loved it, loved all those prosthetics. That was the biggest part. It was the multicolored goo and the prosthetics, which was great. And for me, I was just like, I want to have take some of the DNA, obviously, to do a Street Trash movie, but it was very important that I have a strong story, a strong cast, a cast that you can like and reach for, instead of the cast in the original, which were just like kind of like unlikable characters. And so I just wanted to have that different. And obviously it was important for me to do the prosthetics in camera and put as much gore and multicolored goo and explosions.
You did an amazing job, and I have to say, from the trailer alone, the fact that I feel you really were meticulous with looking at the color palettes that were used, because again, I don't know of a horror movie that approached it in that way. When we thought body horror and gore, it was usually blood, or if there was one color, it was a focus on a color that was, if it was an alien or things like that. But those those multicolored purples and the greens. It was absurd, but
Yeah,
you really
I
crafted
must
it.
admit, it's been great that being at the LA screening at Tarantino's cinema, the New Beverly in LA. When we had the world premiere there was a lot of original fans there, and a lot of original fans were like, we didn't know what to expect and this, but we actually fucking loved it. And it's great that it's a loose sequel instead of like a remake. You didn't try like copy it, and it has its own story, and the Viper is evolved and stuff like that. So it was very nice, and the amount of people, original fans that have reached out to me, fucking love it, which is great. And we also had the blessing of the original filmmakers as well, and they've also watched it and have really enjoyed it. So that's great. It's great to hear that.
No, it's a great thing because again, you picked. Well, I know you mentioned you didn't directly pick it, but somebody had this vision initially to go back and revisit a movie like that, which again is a feat in itself. Because I feel like most people think about it, even just by name, it's like, how are you going to sell that? But then
Yeah,
that anybody that knows the cult following that comes with it.
yeah,
You don't like it because of the story. You like it because of the visuals and
yeah, yeah,
how it was kind of ahead of its time when you think about it. 1987 was a year where there was a lot of horror, but nobody was doing it like that. So,
yeah. But it was also like when I watched the original. Um, Yeah, I watched it many times as a kid, and then later on, I went back to it and watched it, and I hadn't watched it for many years when I was approached, and I was like, "Fuck, I remember that film. Fuck, I haven't seen it in such a long time, but I remember it." And what was interesting was that, um, yeah, I never thought I would even be doing a fucking street trash movie. But it's like to do something in that world of a movie that I watched when I was a kid. I was like, oh, this is fucking cool. It's cool that I knew about this film. It's not just some like random little movie. It was just cool that like fuck. I sat there as a kid with my friends, sitting in my room on my little TV, watching it with my friends. So it was awesome to have and make something. And the fact that we shot it on 35 as well, it just made it more of that very like 80s sort of feel and vibe with the music and just like all the prosthetics. We just ticked a lot of boxes for those type of films when we were a kid growing up, that it was something like that, which was awesome.
and I would say you kicked it up a notch because obviously we had a lot of deaths in the original, but we didn't have the amount that you were able to give us. So obviously we won't discuss spoilers here because if anybody's interested, it is available right now on Amazon Prime to purchase. And it takes everything that worked with the original and just it really evolves that and it gives it context. And again, when I heard the note of 1987 in the movie, I thought it was like chef's kiss because I'm like, how are we going to approach that? So the one question I had when it comes to, going through and figuring out how to pay the homage to stuff like that, were there any restrictions? Were there discussions with the original creators? Like, can you connect it? Is it up to you? And how much did you want to throw in that wasn't feeling like just fan service?
It was, yeah, it was kind of, the producers trusted me and wanted me to do my own thing. And then obviously, once the script was finished, we wanted to get, the original guys to look at it and go, oh, that's cool. We think it sounds cool, So yeah, I kind of did my own thing really. And again, as a fan, I think this film would have been different if I wasn't a fan and I didn't like those type of movies, or I didn't know about the film. But because, again, as a fan, I knew about it. It's like the approach is completely different because you know what the film is, you know what it's all about, and I'm that fan. I'm that kid that watched that film and watched it again many times later on. So it's I guess I'm the right person to do it in that sense because I know what to do, what not to do, but also put my own stamp on it. You know what I mean? So it's cool to play, homage to the original. There's if you're a good fan of the original, you should be able to pick up. There's a few little lines there, and there's a few little nods to it. So there is those things. You know what I mean? There is those things. Um, that you'll pick up on, you know. But again, same time, you know, I wanted to put my stamp on it and make it different. Um, Otherwise, you know, why the fuck am I doing it?
Agreed. I mean, obviously some people look at it as just an opportunity to make something for someone else's vision, but I think that that's a perfect scenario of finding a creative that is passionate to some degree. Like again, you may not have loved the movie, but you have enough knowledge of it to respect the original IP and things like that, and you didn't have to spend a lot
Yeah,
of time to maybe research it, whereas some people, like you said, will go through a different approach and they'll watch it and they'll say, I don't know if I can do this
yeah,
way, and they'll just kind of reinvent the wheel in a
yeah.
sense. But
Well, look at it this way: it's happened many times before with movies where you'll get somebody that ends up. Yeah, I mean, dude, just for one, like look at Star Wars. That's fucked completely now compared to what it originally, you know, what we all loved. It's just a money thing, and everybody's just doing this thing, and it's not what it was at all. It's not what it used to say on the box. It's just completely different, and I guess that's just getting all these random people just doing it, and there's no major love. And I guess that you know, there should be those people that fucking love these things to do this project, you know. So, and that's why I said, like, as a fan, um, you know, I'm pretty sure audience would rather have a fan doing it that's a filmmaker than some other guy who's a filmmaker and he's not a fan and he doesn't really understand that world or know those type of movies, you know.
no, it's a good point. But I was gonna say too, another big part that I realized, I think why you did the movie so well is we can go to your movie prior, which is Fried Barry. I mean, the style is very similar. So I'm assuming that maybe the producers came to you after seeing your work, and
Absolutely, yeah.
it makes sense. As I watched both and I compare, I'm just like, all right, this is like a match made in heaven, in my opinion, for this type of franchise, if you will. But also the fact that you got to work with a certain Gary Green twice, which is really cool. I don't know if I feel like you've worked with him maybe in the past in
Oh
acting
yeah,
roles,
no,
right?
many
Yeah.
times. Gary probably
He-
played at least like 10 years with me, just being like an extra on a lot of
right.
my sets and stuff like that. That was Gary's background, and it was only when we did Fried Barry we actually became like good friends and stuff. And yeah, and then you know our friendship grew from there, and then now it's like no matter what I do, Gary will pop up. And he's not a trained actor, so I do have to work with him very closely to get exactly what I want. I do have to jump through some hoops sometimes to get what I want, but Gary's great and such a cool, nice guy. So it's always I could not have him in Street Trash. You know what I mean? He's perfect for it. You know?
Yeah, two bit kicked ass. I'm just throwing it out there, Gary. If you
Yeah,
see this, big
yeah,
fan,
yeah.
and
He's
you
great.
know,
It's great.
I think all these
Again,
little characters. Yeah,
yeah, I always say this, but Gary's just got that. He's just got that cool fucking look. You know, nobody looks like Gary. He's just got this very bizarre, weird, interesting face. That no, like nobody's ever going to go up to Gary and think he's somebody else. They're going to be
right.
like,
He's got his own persona.
like if he's walking down the street in like America or like London or wherever, and if somebody recognizes them from Fry Barry or Street Trash, I don't think anybody's going to go, is that Fry Barry? I think they're going to go, that's fucking Fry Barry. That's definitely the dude from Fry Barry. So, you know,
No, that's awesome. Yeah, again, it's really cool because I feel like he brought a certain level of creativity to those roles that, again, I think that goes with his personality and his look that just make it work. And having Barry with his invisible friend, if you will, that was a nice little touch as well. Yep, he's awesome. I mean, I'm a big fan of a certain cameraman of the movie too. That was a very creative,
okay,
awesome
cool.
decision. I loved that you acknowledged and gave him a character, and I said, "All right, we got that little Easter egg in the beginning, and then he comes back again later with even more." I thought that was really clever. So awesome
Yeah.
with that.
There was, I think so Vinegar Syndrome is doing a Blu ray release in January. There's a lot of like deleted scenes and really cool like behind the scenes stuff. There was like, I think there was, yeah, maybe one other scene with the POV character Offley. There was another, I think there was another scene in with him there. So a lot of people, yeah, there's a lot of people that really like that character, and it was just something a little bit different. It was like breaking the fourth wall. It was one of another gang member, but we never saw him, and it was
Right.
just he was always there. And again, it's like the audience. So it's like, you know, talking to the audience. So yeah, I just thought it was a cool, quirky, strange, weird thing, but nice. You know, just like a nice thing to have. You know.
And you could also treat it like almost like found footage because he's technically filming. You know, you could be very clever
Yeah,
with that too.
yeah. So yeah, so it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like left open just for the audience to be like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's strange. Or are we ever going to see this guy? But at the same time, with me, everything that I do, like if you know, if you're a fan of Fry Barry and you watch Street Trash, there's a lot of things that connect to,
Right.
and I do that with a lot of my work. So I mean, there's another film there where the POV guy Offley is actually in another film, and
That's
he's got the
awesome.
gloves on and everything, but you see him.
Okay.
so
That's awesome.
it's cool building this world, and you look at our main character Sean Cameron Michael, that plays Ronald. He's the same character in Fry Barry. He plays Ronald as well. So there is those, you know, there is those connections throughout both of the films, and other stuff that I've done that all connects in that same kind of fucking universe.
Which will, I guess we can call that the Ryan Kruger thing, right?
Yeah,
Essentially,
I guess
that's
so.
your multiverse. It
Yeah,
makes sense because I was wondering, I was thinking about that too, and I said everything seems to connect. You know, obviously when you're dealing with other IPs, you know, is there restrictions with that? But you know, you seem to find that way to make that work.
yeah. Well,
But
it's like nicknames. So you know,
yeah,
Gary's name in the movie is Two Bit. So with that, it's a nickname, and then Chef, it's a nickname. So there's all, you know, there's all these like little things to look at, and you know, if you think about it, I mean, there was a lot of cast members that was in Fry, you know, that was in Street Trash, that was in Fry Barry. So
right.
yeah,
Well, you built a
a
good
lot of Easter
relationship, so
eggs.
that
There's a
that
lot of
worked.
Easter eggs in both movies.
Awesome. I had one last question. If you were approached with another opportunity to do, let's say, an 80s horror movie that maybe you liked more that hasn't been done, is there any that you would choose?
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's for me. It's one of those things. Like I've got a lot of my own scripts. There's other things that, you know, I could get approached for and stuff like that. But it's, you know what? It's at the end of the day, it all depends on the script, or it all depends on the story. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, you just don't know until, you know, until you into you know, until you write that script. Like I'd rather write something than do somebody else's script.
Right.
So and it's again, even with this film, it's about getting that right story. And I thought this story works. This story's different. And you know, I brought it to Cape Town, South Africa, instead of being in America. So you know what I mean. It's finding the right story and the right characters, and knowing that it could work and believe in it. Otherwise, it's like I'd rather not do it. so,
Right.
so
Well,
yeah,
and then you have quite the history, you know, outside of these two movies. You make a lot of short films, and a lot of those are pretty much your own scripts and writing, as you mentioned,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, is there a genre that you like to focus? Do you like to stick in the horror realm? Do you like to
Yeah, I
explore other
mean,
things?
you know what? I love all genres. You know, it, it all depends. I've got a lot of different scripts. I do love all genres. It's like music. There's a time and place for everything. You know, when you're watching certain movies, obviously, I do like the darker side of life, and like a narrative with certain films. So you know, I do like my, you know, the John Carpenter movies, and I do like David Cronenberg, and you know what I mean. So I do like the darker side of films. So I probably will obviously stick a lot to that genre. But again, I don't want to get boxed in. You know, there is other stuff and ideas that I've got for horrors where it's like a serious horror, if that fucking makes sense, where it's actually scary and not and not just like the comedy thing and stuff like that. So
Right.
yeah, so I just don't want to get boxed in. You know, there's plenty of other different films, and I think it's good, and I think it's healthy as a filmmaker to constantly just do, you know, different stuff. And obviously my love for horror films and is huge, and it's always been a massive thing growing up, watching all these films and going into the video shops back in the day, looking at that artwork and going, this is amazing, I want to fucking watch this, even though you don't even know what the fuck it's about, but you want to fucking watch it. So it's like, yeah, it's a big part of growing up and my childhood. So that will never change. And you can't beat, you know, in camera gore and prosthetics. It's amazing. It's cool.
Awesome. Well, I know you're a busy man. Again, I appreciate all your time today. This was awesome. I'm so excited to see what else you're working on in the near future. And again, we'll make sure to link access to where you can watch the movie, purchase it. And you said that the physical release will be in January.
Yeah. So the physical release is in January by Vinegar Syndrome. It also hits Screenbox next month, which is basically in a day, so in December. And yeah, and at the moment it's on other digital platforms, Apple, Amazon, and a lot of others, Fandango or something like that. I think
Yeah. I think
there's
that
quite a
the
lot.
old Voodoo used to be, now it's Fandango at home, I think. So yeah,
Yeah,
there's great. So it's widely available. I think initially when it first released, I thought it was only on Amazon. So I grabbed it wherever the first link gave me access. So, but that's
cool,
good to
cool.
know.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, Benny, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time as well, man. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure meeting you and everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your holiday. And remember to take care and have fun.